Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another salty Saturday morning. I'm your producer, Mr. Kadish. Get it right. That is my name. We got a big show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about Director's Jail. That is basically being orchestrated by Rotten Tomatoes, apparently. We're also going to be talking about Sydney Sweeney, everyone's favorite Hollywood actress. Yes, indeed. And but the big thing is we're going to be talking about Rebel Moon Part 2 and Harvey Weinstein. Yay. But before we get to that,
should be fun.
We're going to be talking to our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm having a little issues. I just want to go back to Hellmeyer and shoot bugs and automatons in Helldivers. So yeah, that's all I've been doing. I've just been playing games all week. I don't know what's going on. He gave me a list of things to read. I'm like, Let's go play games. Let's go.
You and Alex actually started a new Helldivers 2 podcast.
Yes, we did.
All right. So every every Tuesday you guys are going to be dropping a new episode?
Tuesday evenings we'll drop it. I'm not sure exactly what time whenever it gets edited, but yeah, Tuesday evenings. Super fun. Salt Divers on the Salty Nerd Gaming channel.
Salt Divers.
That's it.
Salt Divers. And the original Smoke Show himself, Brian from the Popcast, joining us today. Do you have your smoke machine still in your office?
No, I disconnected all of that. Yeah, that was a
fire hazard.
Yeah. That was just a 420 thing.
No, I had it for that week. My plan was to put these little smoke machines with these little pipes kind of. But I built this whole thing that was going to come up for my intro, and it didn't work for my show.
You gotta get the fire pots behind you, like at a heavy metal show.
So I had it routed to like these PVC pipes, and it was cool, but it didn't work. So I thought I unplugged it, but I actually had unplugged one of my lights instead. And during that show, it decided to kick in and just start filling my entire room up with smoke. And I could not stop it, dude.
So, Brian, we forwarded that episode to the Legion of Memers, and they are going to be clipping some of that stuff for us. So thank you for the mountains of entertainment that we're going
and then it just happened to be 420 when it happened.
Yeah.
And every time I'm sitting there trying to turn it off and someone else was talking and it's just filling up and it's getting more and more smoke.
Oh yeah, during Odin's monologue, like it was just going crazy. I almost interrupted Odin to highlight it.
I was unplugging it, bro. I was trying to stuff like tissues into it. Just kept coming.
It looked like your house was on fire. It really did.
It's really quite something.
Indeed.
By the way, Matt sounds like he needs to go to a 12-step program pretty soon for this video game. Hi, my name is Matt, and I'm a Helldiver.
I'm a Helldiver.
Yes. His true passion's video gaming instead of watching terrible movies and shitting on them. Odin finally got his kids down for a nap, decided to join us. Lord of the Pineapple Pizza, King of the Shells. How you doing, buddy?
You switched it around this week. Normally it's King of the Pineapple Pizza, Lord of the Shells. I appreciate
I'm glad that you know that.
Yeah, I do. Well, you say it every time, so but glad to be here. Yeah, finally got little Thor down for his nap. He's potty training now, so that's been a whole adventure.
Oh, you just stick a Cheerio in the toilet and say, "There you go." Aim.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of things wrong with what you just said, but obviously
no, you aim at it.
Yeah, hit the Cheerio.
That's what I did too.
I have to do that.
I have girls, so it was really hard for them.
I have to do that once in a while now to retrain myself. I'll go to the bathroom and the wife will throw a Cheerio in there when I'm sleeping, just so it's floating around, and I'll get the message. It's like,
Matt catches it midstream. Whoa! Don't waste a good Cheerio.
I must have made a mess last night when I was sleep being. So,
we've basically been trying the bribe method. So it's like, all right, if you pee, you get a M&M. He gets very excited. He's like, okay, all right. And then if he goes poop, then he gets a marshmallow. And that's like the big marshmallows. So
that would work for me.
Yeah. Hasn't figured out it totally yet, but he's getting there.
Just like you as a dad, Odin.
I'll poop the biggest poop you've ever seen for a marshmallow.
Let me get a good marshmallow.
Love that stuff. Love a good marshmallow.
Okay.
Yeah. Eventually, your kid's going to be old enough where he doesn't take naps, and then we'll never see you again.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I'll never work. I'll never get. Well, actually, there'll be a period first where I never get to work it again because his nap will be gone. So.
Well, Odin, you've been publishing a lot of great stuff over on geeksandgamers.com, box office reports, stuff like that. So for those of you out there who haven't checked out Odin's box office reports on geeksandgamers.com, go be sure to do that.
Yeah.
And joining us once more triumphantly after a long hiatus is our good friend Smudboy. How you doing, Smud?
I'm fine. We were talking about classical conditioning. I thought I'd bring up my operant conditioning from Mr. Skinner, but you know, I don't have children, so I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, what's it like being the only guy with common sense left in Canada?
Well, we wouldn't own a smoke machine because that's carbon dioxide. We get taxed on that. So,
Oh my god.
yeah.
It's not carbon dioxide, actually. It's horrible glycol. It's very safe.
Oh yeah. Oh, cool.
I'll send you a bottle.
It sounds very safe.
Yeah, carbon dioxide is what you exhale, so they're taxing you every time you take a breath.
It's beautiful. Beautiful country.
What is going on? What is going on with Canada, man?
Every
Why are you
week
guys so
it's
crazy up there.
Every week it's something new,
Trudeau,
and
man.
I actually, we have a $1 billion lunch program that just started. Why this year? I don't know. You ask me. I can't answer these questions. We're giving $20 billion to assisted suicide. We're doing all kinds of crazy grant programs I've never seen before. And we just increased the taxes on the highest tax bracket, which means all the doctors complained to the federal government because now they don't want to work in Canada anymore. They're all moving down to the States. Gee, I wonder why. So, you know, there's a lot of weird things happening.
They're paying people to kill themselves?
Well,
is that what's happening?
Yeah, not technically, but they're putting more money into the program that administers euthanasia.
Also, losing all your doctors in a socialized medicine country is kind of a bad thing.
That's not a good combination. No.
Government, we gotta love it. And Tom Connors Jr. is sleeping it off somewhere probably, so he might join us later on today. He might not. You never know with Tom. He's on so many live streams that he just shows up when he feels like it. And
Take him
he
off
demands
the
he demands to be on the thumbnail. Yeah, exactly. But hopefully we'll get a Tom Connors Jr. sighting sometime today. But I want to give a big shout out to everyone who's in the chat. We got Kaladin910, the first one in the chat. Good to see you, Kaladin. Got Anthony Mark and Lord Thoth. We got that 70s rock fan, Dr. Cocho Dragon. Wendy Hunter, who was up late with the salt divers, watching them do that stuff. We got Major Chai Chai in the chat. Good to see you, Major Chai Chai. Studio Lao. It's probably like 3 a.m. where he's at right now.
Probably.
So appreciate him showing up. We got Anima Confusa, who is the trivia queen of the Salty Nerd podcast. Good to see you, Anima. Drew Lavers. We've also got Jillian N, the gifted sub queen. Good to see you, Jillian. Really appreciate you being here today. And Keely Chow, and of course, Danny's mom, Penny, always in the chat. Good to see you, Danny's mom, Penny. All right, guys, and now let's give a big shout out to our top donators. Scotty Dub is still undefeated up there with that $200 super chat. He is not only our top super chatter, but he's also our top contributor for the year so far. Followed up closely by Mr. William Forbes, Matt Vader super fan. Hopefully we'll get to meet Mr. Forbes soon. He keeps threatening to come out to Vegas, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to find time to do it yet. And of course, our most consistent super chatter, Mexican Iron Man. For not being a YouTuber, he is certainly a super chatter because he does every episode send us a little bit of money, so we appreciate that. But what we really appreciate are our top gifters: Jillian N, WG, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. You guys are always in the chat dropping gifted subs for all the freeloaders that want the free stuff.
Wow.
But we appreciate those, and we also appreciate you guys who actually take those free subscriptions and turn them into regular subscriptions going forward. So love all you guys. We do this for people like you, and we appreciate your support. All right, gentlemen, shall we get started today by talking about a little thing called director jail? So what was funny is that there was this Hollywood Reporter article talking about director's jail. and this is kind of like an inside baseball industry term, where basically if a director made a big bomb that lost the studio a lot of money, they'd be thrown in what's called director's jail. And director's jail is basically where no studio will hire you to do another movie. And so your career is basically relegated to the indie scene or TV or something weird. So what was interesting about this article, and by the way, link to all the articles in the description of this video if you guys want to read these things yourselves, because we don't read here on the Salty Nerd Podcast. We just talk about stuff that we have read. But what was interesting is that basically the strikes, the actor strike and the writer strike that happened late last year, basically was a seismic shift for the industry, where a lot of development deals got, destroyed. Basically, a lot of new studio executives were shuffled around, and so the new focus of Hollywood post-strike is about austerity. It's about scaling back on content, saving money, enjoying the Biden economy as much as they can, and what these new studio contracts with the Actors Guild and Writers Guild really did was actually hurt the ability for studios to make more content. And so there are now fewer jobs for people like directors. And so because there are fewer jobs, that means that they're going for more tested and proven directors. And so there's a lack of up and coming directors in Hollywood. But in addition to that, if you make a movie that fails to perform, fails to make money at the box office, none of the studios are going to use you again. And basically your career is essentially over. And one of the interesting things that this article points out is that in order to figure out who to hire for their next big movie, studio executives are actually looking at directors' movies on Rotten Tomatoes. And if they're not fresh, they don't get hired. So Rotten Tomatoes has actually kind of become like a standard by which Hollywood directors are judged, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I want to throw this to Odin first and foremost. Odin, what do you think about director's jail and the whole idea of using Rotten Tomatoes and not Criticless to determine how good a director is?
So for the jail part of me just doesn't necessarily believe it fully, because I feel like if you are a certain person in Hollywood who has all the right thoughts and is in the right circles, you can make a film that doesn't do well and probably still end up working to some degree, to some extent. I'd have to look and see, because there's been so many films. Like the other thing too is that the vast majority of films that come out every single year are flopping, right? Even some of the bigger budgeted ones, even some of the best performing ones, because they've cost so much, they still end up, losing money. You look at The Rise of Skywalker, and that film made over $1 billion, but because of how much it cost, it actually ended up losing money. And I know that J.J. Abrams doesn't have any major projects that I'm aware of as far as the film side, but I do feel like he's still there and still is involved in producing and different things like that. As far as the Rotten Tomatoes thing, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually true, because you just look at the content that's coming out and it's like they're swimming in their own refuse, right? It's like they honestly, they're making this completely, in many cases, the ones that get the highest Rotten Tomatoes score, Oscar bait, lifeless, soulless stuff. And so if that's what they're looking for to determine who to hire, well, then you're just going to get more of the same lifeless, soulless stuff, only now with more money behind it, with bigger budgets. And that's kind of what we've also seen already with Marvel being a great example, right? They've gone out of their way, it seems, to hire, indie directors, people who have not really shown themselves to be effective with a lot of money, but have made one or two, good movies, solid movies, or at the very least highly praised films. And they've been put into a position of getting a lot of money and have not been able to show that they have the competence to be able to handle that. So that part wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. So the director's jail, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's true in some cases. But for the Rotten Tomatoes thing, that wouldn't surprise me at all, just because it seems like they've already been doing it that way, at least in the side of Marvel.
Yeah. Smudboy, one of the interesting things about this article is they were talking about how a director could make a movie on a streaming platform like Netflix that does really, really well, but everyone in Hollywood is just like, it's streaming. Like, we don't give a crap about how well a streaming movie does. Because like the big thing is like when you have a theatrical release, there's all this marketing money that goes into it. There's distribution costs. There's all this other stuff that increases the cost of releasing the movie. And so if you can't hit theatrically, then they don't want to work with you. But directors are like, oh, but like I got 200 million views on streaming, and all the Hollywood executives are just like, we don't care. What's your take on that?
Well, obviously these people who are jumping to like Amazon Prime and Netflix and these sort of streaming services are getting more life that they would not get otherwise. Like we're talking about the director's jail. I think of like films or directors that I know I don't like M. Night Shyamalan, but he's producing profits. They're not high profits, except for maybe, I think Glass was his biggest one recently. So I think his movies suck, but he's keeping making money. So he's going to keep doing that the same way Transformer films keep getting made, whether it's going to be on a streaming service or otherwise. So for stuff like streaming services on like, TV series, I guess you can call them that. Like the Fallout one's the newest big thing the past 2 weeks. It's gotten high 90s or low 90s, high 80s on Rotten Tomatoes. Who cares? Like you actually pay attention to this film or these series of films. They're technically films. I don't know, like, $150 or $50 million a pop to make these things. Whereas like the M. Night Shyamalan stuff is like, 20 million. Like what was the one I really like, the Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson? That was like 20, 25 million. They make 4 times returns. So this is nothing more than Amazon Prime, Netflix saying, okay, we got to pump something out. We don't know what. Let's throw money at this problem. And they'll find whoever they can find. I don't even know who makes the Fallout series. I know the guys who make the Star Trek Discovery stuff because it's in Toronto, and I know people who work with the cast there. So it's whatever you can find as fast as possible for as cheap as possible. But they're not thinking cheap when they have a brand name that's been going on for 4 or 5 years. So it is a mess right now, and I want it to make sense, because I can get these films, like I could wait half a year for Dune 2 to come out, and I'll get it free for a month, and it goes away, and it'll come back 2 years later. So am I contributing to that? No. But it's the same with shopping. It's the same with anything when you have your time and money. And I don't think this is sustainable. So I don't know where the jail is for some of these people. And I'd love to know, because we have another director we're going to be talking about soon that I want to know what's going on with him. And the people that I like and dislike are not part of that. So I'm curious what's happening. I wish I had more to say.
That's okay. But Brian, one of the interesting things that Smud kind of brought up is that Hollywood is no longer doing like mid-tier budget movies. It's like, they used to have like a series of movies that were in the $30 to $50 million range, that were testing grounds for up and coming directors to kind of prepare them for like the next step up, which is the AAA $100 million plus like movie arena. And now, because they're not doing that, they're just focusing on like these big $100 million plus movies. They want tested and proven directors to be handling those, because they don't want to be in a situation where they give a new director the reins and they kind of like, screw it all up. So the idea here is that a lot of young directors don't have the opportunity to basically build up their skills to become the new Spielberg or the new Scorsese or anything like that. So a lot of directors are actually struggling, trying to find ways in which to make movies so that they can get to the next phase of their career. Do you think that by killing this kind of like incubator, system of training directors to, be the next big thing, that we're just going to be getting worse and worse movies going forward, especially as like the old school dies off or retires?
I don't know. Like a lot of the new directors coming up are either they have no experience and they're being given these giant properties, or they're coming from like television, and it's a different beast. We do need some better blood. Like we need some better blood in the system, but there's not a lot of they're not being trained correctly, because they're being trained to work around this like in order to be successful, to work around this sort of DEI system. And that doesn't make for a good movie, which means it's probably not going to have good profit. And a lot of them are being controlled by the studio because they're attached to franchises that are so big that the studio won't allow the creatives to actually be creative and do their own thing. So I don't know. We've made a Frankenstein of Hollywood where it's no longer the same thing. It's either some giant franchise or it's studio controlled. And there's not a whole lot of movies that the studio will trust that will come from, newer or younger directors and writers. So I think we're going to get to the point where Hollywood's going to have to take risks, and not take risk on their message, but take risk on new creatives.
All right, guys. Well, I want to welcome Tom Connors back to the panel. Looks like he finally woke up. How you doing, Tom?
I was out doing stuff. I got ice cream.
As long as you didn't get it at Dairy Queen.
I got ice cream.
No, fuck Dairy Queen.
Yeah, screw Dairy Queen.
Tom, so we are talking about director's jail and how basically the Hollywood strikes have had these unintended consequences of actually making less work for actors and writers and, in this case, directors. Do you think that there's any other kind of fallout from like the actors and writers strikes from last year that we're going to start seeing soon, especially like in the industry?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you guys have covered already, but basically, you guys are right. These studios have become nothing but IP farms now. They're doing the absolute opposite of what they used to do. They destroyed all their ancillary markets. The fallout from the strikes, and it looks like they might be looking at another possible IATSE strike coming up here too, if they can't get that shit in order. For Hollywood, it's kind of a win for them because this way they can slim things down and get rid of some fat and all this other crap. For the creatives, though, it's not such a good thing, I guess. I didn't catch all the conversation, so I don't know what you guys have covered yet. So, yeah.
Well, it pays to be on time sometimes, so you can get caught up. But Matt Vader 74. So what's happening right now is that there's a lot of like kind of tried and tested directors like Ridley Scott. In this article, they talked about Robert Zemeckis, who hasn't actually made a hit in like a decade, but he still keeps getting work from the studios, whereas like new up and coming hot young directors like aren't getting the shot. And a lot of the stuff that these directors are doing on streaming isn't being given a lot of credit in Hollywood. So what's your take on this? Do you think directors should be getting a better shake?
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of talented people out there that aren't getting a fair shake. So, I don't really know what to add to this conversation because, I'm not a film director. I don't have anything in this industry, but it would seem to me that if I was an executive, I would probably look at this person's resume per se and see what kind of movies he's made and what kind of reviews they've gotten. I mean, what's wrong with that, right? I mean,
well, that resume is now Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, yeah, I know, I get that, but there's other metrics that they can use besides Rotten Tomatoes. I think a good executive would look at all the different things, right? Rotten Tomatoes.
There's no such thing as a good executive in Hollywood. In the article they talked about, it's Rotten Tomatoes and one meeting. That's all a director gets.
Yeah, that's no good. And that's not fair to a director trying to get some work. I mean, what are they supposed to do? I mean, it's a weird industry. I don't know how it works. It's strange. I guess that's what they have. Well, I'm not going to say it. I was going to get really dirty there for a second, but I won't go there. But I don't know. And it seems like when I was growing up, it was like Steven Spielberg made every single movie I ever went to the theater to watch, right? Is there a Steven Spielberg out there now? I see things like what I see now is like studios like Disney or Lucasfilm, for instance. They're internally training up their own cadre of directors, and they're training them on things like The Mandalorian and stuff like that. So when it comes time to make a new Star Wars movie or something, they're just going to go back into that little pool and pull from one of those people who's already been working in their system. It's like they have a little farm system for their upcoming movies. And I don't know, are other studios doing that? You know, is that how these people are trying to need to get work? They need to like go sign up for
in Hollywood, it's called incubators. So like, for instance, the Bad Robot production company that J.J. Abrams started, that was an incubator for future screenwriters and future filmmakers and stuff like that. And that's actually one of the reasons why movies suck so much nowadays, is because so many people who are in the studio system came from the Bad Robot incubator. It was a real pain in the ass. Go ahead, Odin.
Well, because you mentioned Robert Zemeckis, and I was thinking about it, thinking about how you said he was still getting work and stuff, and I was like, that's so interesting, because when he made that film The Walk back in 2015 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, that film didn't make money. It only made like 1.8 times its budget back. He did a film called Welcome to Marwen in 2018 with Steve Carell, made 0.3 times its budget. And then I totally forgot that he was the one that made the 2022 Pinocchio on Disney Plus. So, and that film wasn't cheap to make, and that film didn't do well and was one of the worst films, at least according to many sites. So I look to that, and I think, again, that's why the whole director's jail thing, I think it depends on who you are and what's going on, you know, in your career, and how much goodwill you have, things like that. But I think there's a lot of really good points being made about how there really isn't a lot of money being given to these new and upcoming directors. I do still think there's a lot of opportunities, though, for people, right? I think YouTube has definitely provided a space for, you know, new people to try to test things out. And then, you know, say what you will about someone like Steve Soderbergh, but I think he's also shown, if you have the creativity behind, you know, in your mind, you can do a lot with very little. I mean, he made an entire movie with an iPhone. His upcoming movie, I think, was made with a camera that a lot of people will use for like vlogs and stuff. And so it's like, that's just incredible that you could still do so much with that technology. There's
all kinds of outlets out there for these people to put their things on. You know, we watched a movie last year, Matt, what was it called? Headhunter?
The Headhunter, yeah.
It was made for $50,000. It looks like a $5 million movie.
It was made for $13,000.
And it's just, you know, if they can make stuff like Headhunter, guys, go check it. I think it's on what's the horror channel that you can get through Prime?
Shudder.
It's on Shudder. Yeah, it's fantastic, and you know, there's plenty of good things out there. And I'd like to see that director get a you know a big budget movie. But you know, there's outlets out there for these people to utilize that they can display their stuff.
Look at the bright side. Zack Snyder is right where he belongs.
Yeah,
on Netflix.
Straight to Netflix.
Well, you know, with the advent of AI filmmaking and stuff like that, you're going to start seeing a lot of like young creators who will have the tools to make what is essentially a big budget AAA movie without needing actors or sets or, you know, effects houses or anything like that.
You know, there's
that's coming pretty soon.
There's what the movies that are out right now, Civil War, and I think Abigail had a budget of $28 million. Civil War had a budget of $50 million. Those aren't huge big budget movies in comparison to these big tent poles. You know, I mean, they're making movies that aren't $150+ million.
But even those aren't making money. That's the problem.
And also those were made before the strikes. And so like the new Hollywood paradigm shift is going towards no more mid-budget movies.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And that's the issue too, is that it used to be not just a place to have the testing ground for like up and coming directors and give them a chance and maybe even make a little bit of money on top of it. You know, now even those movies that cost 20 to 50 million can't make their money back and end up losing, you know, tens of millions of dollars in many cases.
Civil War's losing money, really? I haven't seen it yet, but I thought it was.
No, it's been okay, but it could do a lot better. See, here's the thing is they screwed themselves on the other end. They don't have the DVD market anymore to make up for any losses they would have had on the theater side of things anymore, because they've destroyed that market through streaming. We're learning now how much they're losing through streaming. For instance, NBC reported this week they are losing $7 million a day on Peacock. Okay, and now they're actually one of the ones that are doing all right. Can you imagine how much Disney is losing a day on Disney Plus?
Well,
because here's what Peacock isn't doing. Peacock isn't making $300 million Marvel series. Peacock isn't making a bunch of movies like Pinocchio and dumping them on Peacock, right? What they're doing is just taking all their NBC stuff, putting it on Peacock. Their Universal movies, putting it on Peacock. And they're losing $7 million a day. So that tells me Disney is probably losing somewhere in the, we figured, probably $30 to $50 million a day range, at least.
Wow. That's
Can I ask a question, Tom?
We all know how expensive cock is, but we got to move forward. So, Brian, finish up this conversation.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. How are they losing so much money? What are they? What are they?
Costs.
What are the overhead costs?
Well, first of all, you have to have servers. You have to have all
servers are not that expensive. So what's next? Directors and executives, or what?
You got to pay out all the residuals. You got to pay out everything. The point being is these streaming services aren't making them any money. They are costing them more than it costs to actually run them.
Then they're being ran poorly, because it should not be costing that much money. Servers do not cost that much money. So then their contracts with the residuals and their executives and like their whole setup is incorrect, because they're losing that much money on their streaming service because of how much money they're making per user per month.
Well, that's just it. They're not. That's why they're putting in
ads.
No,
but how much they're charging per month per user. You look at how much users they have per month. Look at the millions and millions and sometimes billions of dollars coming in every year. How in the world are they losing money? Because they're set up poorly. It must be mismanaged, because servers don't cost that much. Well, as someone who has a server behind me and a server right here and a server right here, they don't cost that much.
But your server doesn't need to have the ability to have hundreds, thousands, millions, depending on the service.
I ran a co-location farm
all at the same time.
Right. That was my first job. I ran a co-location farm, and I have a co-location server in Texas. They don't cost that much.
Brian, the cost isn't necessarily the technical cost. It's they lump in the production cost of original content with those figures,
and residuals and executives and all this. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's what I'm running. So they're being ran poorly. It's not
poorly managed.
It's poorly managed. It's not the model. It's the way they're being ran.
Yeah, I mean Netflix has been profitable since the beginning. So, but real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Jillian N, who gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships to the chat. Thank you so much, Jillian. And for those of you who got those 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships, go check out our members only playlist on our channel that has all the members only content on it. And let us know what you think about it. And also, if you guys are doing super thanks, we're now reading super thanks live on the shows that we do, so that they can be highlighted and properly acknowledged. So we appreciate all you guys for doing that stuff. But gentlemen, speaking of movies that are way too expensive, let's talk about Sydney Sweeney and how she has low key had the biggest hit of the year and nobody's talking about it. This is absolutely crazy. And we're not talking about biggest hits in terms of the 2 things on her chest. We're talking about an actual movie here. So basically, Sydney Sweeney made a movie called Anyone But You with this other actor. I'm blanking on his name, but he's awesome.
Top Gun Maverick he was in.
Yeah, Glenn Powell. He was in Scream Queens. He was Chad Radwell in Scream Queens, which I absolutely loved. But he's kind of on the rise. He's going to be in the movie Twisters coming out this summer. And they basically did a movie which was a adaptation of William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. And it was just a very low budget rom-com. It was $25 million budget romantic comedy. And it killed it in the theaters. It made over $215 million in the theaters.
Why have I never heard of this movie?
I know a lot of people haven't heard about this movie, but it's been one of the biggest success stories of the year, and nobody is talking about it. And then it's now moved to Netflix, and it's dominating Netflix. It's one of the #1 things on Netflix that people are watching, and it's absolutely crazy. So I want to throw this to Tom first and foremost. Tom, why has nobody heard of this movie before? Tom, you there?
Tom left.
You want me to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Odin.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where it made a lot of money compared to its budget. $216 million compared to a $25 million budget is very impressive. 8.6 times its budget. Typically, movies need to make between 2.5 and 3, maybe a little bit higher than that, just to break even. This film made 8.6 times that. Most films in their first 2 weeks, right, make a majority, maybe half or more of their entire box office. The first 2 weeks only account for 14% of its entire box office, meaning it made a crap ton after the fact. And I remember when this film came out because it was doing better than expected. It had these insane strong drops from week 1 to week 2 to 3, on and on. It kept making money, kept being in the discussion. And then as I kept following it, I said, okay, this is this little engine that could. It's the movie that seems to be one driving out couples, because I think this came out around Valentine's Day, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was a big part of it too. And so I would say that it's one that, again, did very well. But as far as it being one that people haven't heard of, well, again, because a lot of people probably still haven't heard of it, because that's a lot of money for its budget, but it's not like it's a $1 billion film where everyone's seeing it and everyone's talking about it. But clearly the Netflix thing is going to make it a lot more recognizable for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Gavin Blackburn says, I only watched it to see if she got him out. I think that's why most men, which I want to throw this to Brian, because Brian, Sydney Sweeney's been on an upswing of popularity lately, simply because of the most successful failure in cinematic history, Madam Web. She got exposed to like a whole new audience of comic book geeks who are like, oh, this girl's actually really hot in real life. Let's check out more of like her stuff. How much of this success do you think is based around Sydney Sweeney and her quote unquote assets?
I think it's actually based on her attitude. I think that when she came on SNL, a lot of people saw like this really funny, pretty girl who wasn't afraid to love the fans and wasn't afraid to, to buck the system, to not go down the route that apparently every young starlet has to go down, and just be a classical starlet, and I think between Madam Web and SNL, I think she introduced herself to a lot of people. And I haven't seen the movie yet, but now that I know it's on Netflix, I'm about to add that to the watch list. And,
yeah, this is like one of those movies we can like, hey, honey, you want to watch a movie? And then you'll like surprise her with some chick flick.
Right, it's a chick flick. You're like, yeah, but and your wife, she's great.
And your wife doesn't know that you have ulterior motives, right? It's like,
no, I don't have ulterior. No, of course I don't have ulterior motives.
Matt, I'd like to say more prayers for you, dude. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Vader, I wanted to ask you, because like your wife does drag you to some of these quote unquote chick flicks.
She does.
But it's kind of interesting because there's been a big lack of romantic comedies in the last couple years, in favor of more genre-based stuff. So do you think that this could open the door to seeing more like romantic comedies geared towards women and couples?
Man, I hope not. They have Lifetime. They have Hallmark Channel. What more do they need? It's all good. Christmas is coming in a few months. We can start watching Christmas movies on Hallmark pretty soon. Everything's fine. Sydney Sweeney's going to end up being like one of those actresses that's going to make 15 Christmas movies on Lifetime. So it'll be fine.
It might be, man. Yeah.
I don't know.
Eventually get to that.
Her last movie was about a nun who got pregnant through immaculate conception or something like that.
Boy.
Well, remember they're making Baywatch 2, the movie.
Oh.
And if she's not a part of that, I'm confused. Made some mistakes.
My favorite part of reading the articles today about this is that this actor who's in this movie with her, what's his name?
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell is going to be in a Running Man remake. That's the one thing in this whole article that made me go, oh, I didn't know they were making a Running Man remake. But I'm in. Let's go. Sounds great. But yeah, Sydney Sweeney's fantastic. I love it. I've never seen anything that she's been in. I have not watched Saturday Night Live. I haven't watched this movie. I haven't watched Madam Web. But I'm a fan, I guess. So,
are we just going to let it go that he said he wants a Running Man remake? What the hell?
I was going to say something.
I don't give a shit what you say about movies, because you have terrible taste in movies. Because you don't like Furiosa. Listen, it is this Arnold Schwarzenegger classic, but it can be remade. It's not one of those ones that cannot be remade.
Oh, let's go back and see how well Total Recall turned out.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue.
I think Blade Runner was pretty good.
Blade Runner was all right. Yeah.
Total Recall TV series is pretty good. Filmed in Canada.
Sure.
That's true. Hey, he's right.
Yep.
There's Smud representing
Arnold did
Canada
it.
again.
I
All right. I want to throw this to Smud because Smud, one of the interesting things about this article is how it talks about success on Netflix can actually translate into box office success. And they specifically talk about how nobody really saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in theaters, but when it came on Netflix, it got such huge numbers that it got them like a sequel to that. So what do you think? Do you think that Sydney Sweeney dominating Netflix is a signal to the industry to do double down on Sydney Sweeney properties?
In regards to the Marvel relationship with Netflix, she was one of the only, if not the first, to say that I'm not in the film. Like that was her response on social media. You won't find me in the film, because she knew it was so bad, and everyone knew the film was bad. So for an actor, and she plays a huge role in the film, for her to say that is like, oh, thank you for not.
I think what she meant was nobody went to see it. Is what
Oh, really?
The joke was, yeah, it was like you saw me in the one, but nobody went to see me in the other one, is what she said. I think was the joke.
Was that the implication? Okay, because
yeah, but she's at this point where she can get past a flop, right? So yeah,
I guess so. I don't know. Last year it was all that rumors about her dating her co-star, and great. I mean, that happens all the time in any film where there's amazing chemistry, and that's probably why the film did well as a film, not financially. But yeah, no, I would say because of popularity, because of the streaming service, and because people saw that, all of a sudden she's getting thousands of hits on her whatever Instagram, I guess it is, where she posted. So yeah, she has to respond to that, and she did the right thing. She's saying, yeah, it sucks. And good. That's what people want to hear. People want to know when something sucks, there's some, like the face of the thing to come out and say, I agree, or you're right, as opposed to, oh, you're just a hater. You're just you align with the company message or the IP brand or whatever it is. No, tell it as it is, and be honest, because stars aren't stupid. They're not just standing there saying their lines. Thank you for the check. They got their own voice. So I think that was nice. Yes, she's very attractive. Yes, she's in rom-coms that not too many people are into. I'm into rom-coms. I went to go see Mean Girls earlier this year. It's a remake of the Lindsay Lohan thing from like 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic
And it's a musical.
film. It's a musical dance number. If you guys like the stage, you're probably going to like Anyone But You as well, because it's based off Shakespeare. And
I hated the new Mean Girls. Hated it.
Really, I loved it. It was
Passion of
beautiful.
1,000 Suns.
The original I didn't like. This one was beautiful. It was fun to see.
I like the original.
People like, that's the reason why you go to see this. Oh, what's Lindsay Lohan doing now? What are the other actors doing now? So, but to stay, I knew nothing at the time, and then I went, okay, I'm gonna go watch the original. So yeah, no, it will encourage people to go see. Oh, she shares my sentiment, even if it's just a simple thing like I didn't like a film, and that will encourage you to go watch her other stuff.
You know, Tom, one of the interesting things about this success story is that it kind of reinforces the importance of theatrical releasing, because this movie did so well in the theaters that by the time it got to streaming, like people were like, oh, I want to rewatch this, or I want to watch, or I've heard about this, I want to watch it again. And Hollywood, they flirted and experimented with this model of going direct to streaming or day and date release of streaming and theatrical. But it seems like the old school method of releasing, which is basically let it go through the theaters and then 6 months later it's video on demand or whatever the case may be, that seems to be the key to profitability on a lot of these movies. What's your take on that? And of course he checks out.
He got again. Bro,
yeah, he comes in to fight with Vader, but like when it's time for me to throw him something,
oh man,
he's like getting ice cream again or something.
Can't wait for Furiosa.
I guess
it's gonna be awesome.
I'll step in. I'll step
Actually,
in
I
here
was
first.
doing
Oh,
paperwork. What was the question?
We're moving on, Tom. What were you gonna say?
Oh, fuck you!
But no,
I'm sitting here waiting, and nobody talks to me. So I'm like, fine, I'm gonna go do paperwork, and then you talk to me.
If you had your camera on, I'd know when to talk to you. So, go ahead and
yeah. So what I was gonna say was what I said before about how it wasn't like a big box office as far as like total money, but obviously compared to budget, very good. But that's also why it's probably doing so well on Netflix, because a lot of people who did see it really enjoyed it, got a lot of hype around it. So people who maybe didn't want to see it in theaters or didn't want to spend that money were like, oh, this is on Netflix now? I've heard a lot of good things. So kind of just feeds into it, what you were just saying.
Yes, indeed. All right, guys. So we've actually got a super chat from Mexican Iron Man for the 199. Nerd fight. Go, Tom, go. Yes, indeed.
He's my cheerleader.
I'd pay to see Vader and Tom throw down in a one-on-one match there. Should be good. All right, guys. So we talked about Sydney Sweeney, and right now we're going to be talking about our thumbnail topic, which is Harvey Weinstein being declared innocent of a certain charge that he was accused of. So on YouTube, we can get in trouble for.
Was he declared innocent, or is he getting a retrial?
He's getting a retrial. Tom, let me fucking produce the show today. All right, I'm going to be getting into this stuff, and I'm going to go to you first, so that you can go and do your paperwork once we start talking about the discussion. But real quick, because YouTube is basically very sensitive to certain words, we're going to be doing the safe for TV version of this story. So every time we're talking about SA, we're going to refer to it as hanky panky. And instead of arpist, we're going to be referring to him as a hankiest. So just so you know, like we're using this language so that we don't get slapped down on YouTube. So real quick, we have this Hollywood Reporter article that talks about how the New York Appeals Court has overturned Harvey Weinstein's hanky conviction. And it's actually a very interesting article because it has kind of like far-reaching implications for like the whole Me Too movement that's still kind of going on in Hollywood, and other people that have been accused of this stuff, and the victims of Harvey Weinstein. But Tom, I know that stuff like this is particularly relevant to all aspects of entertainment. Like, you've had people try to cancel you by making false accusations about this type of stuff. And from what I read in this article, there's actually a lot of things here that were basically just not well executed legal procedures. And that's why this got overturned. And it's going back to a retrial. But Harvey Weinstein also had gotten a conviction in Los Angeles. This is a New York-based conviction. So he's still guilty from the Los Angeles verdict, and he's going to be transferred to a Los Angeles jail while this retrial in New York is going to be going on. But I wanted to get your take on this. What do you think are the implications of the headlines of this thing going forward, just that Harvey Weinstein is no longer considered a hankiest in New York?
Well, as I was trying to correct you there, I think he's still going for a retrial. So this could just be a formality at this point. But I mean, honestly, going back through the paperwork of the trial, I read through it whatever it happened, a year ago, 2 years ago when he was convicted. Going through it, I was just kind of surprised they even convicted him to begin with. Now, I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's scum, and I'm not saying he's not a piece of crap or any of those things, and I'm not sticking up for him. But if you read through the actual court case, if this is the one I'm thinking of, and it's not I think the California one is the worst of the two. The one is just basically women that he was in relationships with. And in a court of law, it's really difficult without any kind of actual physical evidence or witnesses or video or audio, kind of like, with the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing is a good example, to really convict somebody of anything like that. Because when you're in a domestic situation, it's tough to prove those things without any evidence. So I was really kind of surprised they got him in the first place. Now I think the California trial, there's an actual video involved. So that one I can't speak to too much because I didn't follow that one as much. But yeah, it felt like a kangaroo court reading through the documentation. I'm like, how did they even let this pass? How did nobody, not object to this? Was this even allowed? Because it was a lot of he said, she said, hearsay stuff. So again, and I don't know specifically what brought them to the point where they he needs to get retried or whatever. But I think this is going to happen going forward with some of these Me Too cases, because I feel like a lot of them were real quick to jump on a judgment without actually doing any due process. And it's almost like the whole Me Too movement had forgotten that the part of the reason it is difficult to go after some very strong and powerful men is, you know, you generally have to have some pretty solid evidence to destroy somebody's, you know, image like that. And in this day and age, it's easy as hell. All you got to do is have an accusation, right?
Yeah,
Especially,
you don't have to have a trial. You don't
right? So you don't have to have evidence. You don't have to have anything. So again, I'm not trying to stick up for Harvey. We all know he's a piece of shit, and I say he's scum, and he's scum because he's the top, right? He's just the tippity top of the pond or the scummy swamp. You go deeper and deeper, it gets worse. Now, I'm not saying, oh, he should get off just because, you know, he's not as guilty as everybody else is. But at the same time, I think they were overlooking that a lot of the things that Harvey did was, at least in his perception, you do me a favor, I do you a favor. And you can't turn around and cry foul after that. See, that's the bigger problem we have here too. So again, I'm not trying to victim blame. I'm not trying to say that there aren't any guilty parties in this. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, he's innocent in any way either. Well, right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to...
I'm sorry, weren't they bringing in a bunch of stuff in this trial that had nothing to do with the actual case, with this all this other stuff?
So I wanted to throw that to Brian because what happened here is that the judge of the trial allowed a lot of stuff that wasn't relevant to the case to come in terms of, like, you know, past transgressions that Harvey Weinstein may or may not have committed. And the weird thing about this is, like, it was a New York trial. It was a New York judge who basically had it out for Harvey Weinstein. And so he basically mismanaged the trial. And then you look at some of the stuff that's happening to Orange Man in New York as well. And basically he's getting it even worse than Harvey did. And so when you have a New York appeals court look at this and be like, okay, there's all these miscarriages of justice here. We're going to overturn this conviction and send it back to the court. What implication does that have on the political end of things, where you have, like, a person who's running for president going through pretty much the exact same thing?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in New York, man. But, like, these activist judges, activist lawyers, activist DAs, they're not standing up for justice. They're not doing their job as with, you know, holding the scales of justice high. They are going out of their way to fulfill their personal biases and to be activist. And it's not right. The law needs to be pristine. The law needs to have no politics. There should be no, the letter of the law is important, and we cannot let feelings and ideas, political biases into the system. The law has to be pure. And I'm seeing a lot in New York, especially New York for some reason, where they just think they're going to utilize their position to take the sacred law and to pervert it for their own needs. And it's not right. Now, I don't know about Harvey Weinstein. I think the guy is probably a dirtbag doing hokey pokey with the hanky panky, but that doesn't mean that the judge didn't have it out for him. And he should be getting a retrial if he was railroaded by an activist judge that hates the guy or hates whatever, whether it's political or not. Anything, if you have a bias as a judge and you're not looking at the letter of the law and you bring down judgment based on your feelings, you're wrong.
Yep.
Don't you think it'd be kind of impossible for him to get a fair retrial at this point, though?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way that's going to happen.
Well, there are ways in which you can move jurisdictions. But speaking of things that are wrong, let's talk about Canada's judicial system with Smudboy. Smud, you know, Canada has it out for, seems like, everyone but criminals, much like New York. What would be the case with Harvey Weinstein up in your neck of the woods?
It's a very long process depending on which court system you're in Ontario, so it could take months.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to Trump, I believe the female lawyer that was in charge of was it Jean Carroll case, the one that sued
Jean
Trump?
Carroll, yeah.
That's
the one who got him for defamation, right? So, like,
yeah, they couldn't get him for hanky panky, so they got him for saying they're lying about me.
Yeah, they lost for the hanky panky, but they still ended up getting him for saying they're lying about the hanky panky, which is like
$84 million for
that is unbelievable to me. Like I look at that and I'm like, how is anyone okay with this? How is not a single person okay with this? This is insane.
But Smud, it reminds me of Jordan Peterson, where like the Canadian government went after him for just exercising his free speech. Of course, you guys don't have free speech up in Canada, though, right?
Jordan Peterson had a few cases. We still don't know exactly what happened with his the Ontario Psychological Association, what his reprimand he had to do. Like we were waiting, and apparently there was a meeting, and they went through that, but they let it go through because the court said this is a private organization. They can administer their people however they want. It's nothing to do with the legal system, even though they're taking away his livelihood. Well, he's a rich guy now, but they're taking away his practice just because he said stuff, not bad stuff, just stuff on Twitter that someone flagged, or millions of people flagged because they dislike Jordan Peterson. So that's just whatever happens. We're still waiting on what's happening with him and his daughter, and they talk about it here and there, but we don't know exactly whether he's lost his practice or whatever. But he's been fighting for freedom of speech for God knows since 2004 or 5, since he actually made himself public. And people hate him because he says things that, of course you should clean your room. Of course you should. It's like, yeah, well, you don't. You should do it. It's basic discipline. And he's just saying the simplest things. Yeah, no, it's
really simple
it's nothing
stuff.
New. Yeah, and obviously he has
take
his own
personal responsibility and don't be a dickhead.
And
it's not that hard.
He's so sensitive on issues regarding totalitarianism because he's studied it and he's read the Archipelago book for all his life, and he's always rambling on about things that people on the left or on the media side of things are uncomfortable with. And we've known this. The woke left is now finally being a bit disfigured, if not shifting its colors in Canada. And we're just like, get on with it. Get going.
They're going full on authoritarian up there now, huh?
It is, well, it's hard. I heard that that neutrality is coming back even in the States for whatever reason. So there's all kinds of weird things happening.
Just randomly. Goes back. Net neutrality. The redo. Reboot.
That's coming back. We have a war on groceries here. We did not have our inflation tax applied this year as it does every year to our beer. And the Liberal government was like, hey, we're not raising your taxes on beer. It's like, you shouldn't be doing that ever in the first place. Ontario is the most taxed province in the world for alcohol. It has a monopoly on alcohol. So if I want to get beer from Quebec, I should just drive to Quebec and get their beer because it's going to take forever to get it here.
That's like gas and cigarettes here. It's like, for some reason, there's an insane amount of tax on these particular things.
It's actually quite funny.
Half the amount of money you spend on a pack of cigarettes is just going to the government. Half.
Yeah, we have these things called equalization payments, and Quebec gets the most, meaning that the entire country pays when a province is in the red. And Quebec has been this way for, 30 years. But if you buy beer or alcohol in Quebec, there's very little tax. But if you buy gas, there's twice the amount of tax. So it's this drive in for a day, buy your beer, get the hell out of there. Yeah.
I want to throw this to Vader because New York is basically Canada Junior in this sense. But we've seen that the legal system in New York City in particular is so politicized that they're doing this thing. It's called lawfare, which is basically where you have the political party in charge gaming the system to prosecute people that they don't like. And you've seen this a lot with like the Orange Man stuff. And New York is getting this reputation for being like completely like kangaroo court type justice system.
It's insane.
It is insane. And basically you have like district attorneys who refuse to prosecute actual crimes like shoplifting and murder and assault and stuff like that. And they're going after political opponents for quote unquote hush money payments, which the federal government basically said, like, there's no crime here. We can't prosecute this. And they're like, well, we're going to create a crime out of thin air. So what's your take on New York's legal system and why is it so messed up?
Well, man, me, the legal law expert here, I don't know, dude. I don't know the answer to your silly question. It's politics, right? It's just they're trying to take down people who they don't want in office. As far as our former president goes, I mean, I'm assuming that's who we're mostly talking about here in this case. Yeah, it's garbage. It's just political hits, and they're trying to do everything in their power to make it so it's difficult for him to run and do what he needs to do to get elected. I mean, but in the end, I think we all know that they're just falling right into the trap. They're making everybody else in the rest of the country pissed off.
Yeah.
So I mean,
about those people though, what about the people that
keep him in the courthouse and watch what happens. It's gonna be another Mondale or another Reagan sweep. It's going to be like 48 red states to
maybe
in the end is what's going to end up happening.
But what about the people who are like all about it? They're like, oh yeah, they should be doing it. It's righteous.
Well,
to be perverting the law.
They're noisy, but they're not. I don't think any true-blooded American person believes that railroading somebody like this is going to be good in the long run. I mean, put yourself in those shoes. Nobody wants it. It's a terrible precedent.
It's true.
And it's New York. It's New York and fucking California. It's a joke. It's a joke. They do, those two states do not rule the entire country. I'm sorry, they don't.
They think they do.
So they think
they do. Look at California's latest ad. They ran an ad in like Alabama about like unwanted pregnancies and how these people are trying to cross the border. Like, quick, get to the border before they catch us. And like the sirens pop up. And she had California plates. You're like, you realize how far California is from Alabama, dude? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So it's insane.
I want to throw this to Odin, because off of Vader's point, like, this isn't just about the presidential election. This is actually about the way that Hollywood operates and the rungs of power, the powerful men there. Harvey Weinstein was the first kind of target of the Me Too movement, and whether it was justified or not, what happened was he was the first domino to fall, and that opened up the floodgates for women, whether they actually had like a legitimate complaint or not, to take down very powerful men in the infrastructure of Hollywood. And what we've seen from the fallout of that is you've seen people who kind of knew what they were doing in terms of like creating content for the masses, being taken out of positions of power, like the guy who started Pixar, John Lasseter, and replaced with what can only be defined as diversity hires or women who basically use this as an opportunity to climb the ladder. So with this kind of news story breaking about how like Harvey Weinstein is no longer a hankiest in New York, a lot of people are saying like, oh, like now it's going to start swinging in the other direction, where we're going to start putting these terrible people back in positions of power,
like Handmaid's Tale or something.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
What's your take on all this, Odin?
Man, I tell you, all it does is just make me and remind me of how bad our justice system actually is. I mean, because I talk about this with my classes about how, to have a truly just system, there has to be you have to have equal, access, right? You can't guarantee equal outcomes, but there should at the very least be, equality in justice, equality in the law. But the fact is that if you have a lot of money, you get treated differently. You get access to lawyers, you get access to ideas that can get you either out of prison or get you, out of the death penalty or whatever it might be, right? So we already have this inequality here. And so when you see things like this, you're like, okay, I personally think that he's probably a pretty, scummy guy just based on everything that we know and we have heard. But at the same time, we also remember that one of the biggest bad things that happened from the whole Me Too movement was a lot of people got wrongly convicted. A lot of people had allegations made against them that couldn't be corroborated, that couldn't be proved. And they either had their entire careers destroyed, or they, in some cases, they even were found guilty in a court of law. Now, I'm not saying that that's what happened here with Harvey, but it is clear that the reasoning being used by this judge, it seems to make sense. I mean, it seems to be like, okay, I mean, it's a technicality, but at the same time, you know, why was the previous judge not trying to make sure that this was airtight, was not trying to make sure that this was, you know, by the very letter of the law? And that's the other problem that comes up with all of this stuff, is because, you know, what judge is going to, and this is also goes, you know, someone mentioned, oh, you can change jurisdiction, but this was such a public thing. I don't know of any jurisdiction where you're going to find a jury that's not going to have something to say about this, that's not going to have made up their mind one way or the other about this guy, because of how public it all was. So it does now raise that question of, can he ever even get a fair trial now? And then you add on top of that, what judge is going to want to be the one who says he goes free, or is going to be the one to preside over the trial that actually completely exonerates him, right? And so you have all of these things, not to mention one of the things that we should have a right to, that I thought we had a right to, was a speedy trial. And you look at some of these things, it's like, how long ago did that trial wrap up?
Right.
And what time is it now? It's like, wait a minute, like, we're talking many, many years now that have gone by. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, our rights, you know, and this is actually for someone who is very insanely rich on top of it, right? So if even he has to go years before any appeal can actually be heard and can actually have a decision, what hope do we have to have a speedy trial?
Yeah,
so to me, this just shows
you
how completely messed up our current, you know, because the system itself, the ideas are good, but in practice, there is so much blatant corruption and just stupidity that something needs to happen. Something needs to change.
Can I ask you a question, Odin?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? What if, instead of publicized trials where everyone's name is shown, why can't we have these trials with anonymous people? Why does the super famous people have to be in the room where everyone knows them? There's almost no way you get a fair trial. Why can't you have an anonymous trial? Why is that not a thing?
One of the issues that comes up with that is, how are you going to enforce it? Are you going to start, you know, basically, let's say a media source finds out about a trial happening or finds out about a lawsuit, you know, at that point you have to say, okay, you can't cover this, and now you're infringing upon speech. And so that's like the issue that comes up, you know. And so the only way that we're going to have changed the media side of it is culturally, by us saying, no, I'm not watching this. I'm not going to these sites. I'm not giving them my attention for something that you know, in time past, I would have no idea is actually even going on or happening, and has no actual impact on my life in some cases, right? So I think that's the bigger issue, though, is that then you start talking about what other rights then are going to need to be trumped in order for that to be the case. But, you know, I think as far as they can, they should make it as private as possible, unless it's dealing with a public official.
At least, what if the jurors just don't know who they're trying? Because how does Trump get a fair jury? Either side. Either he gets, like, right now in his case, how does he get a fair, you know, like 12 people that don't know him?
He doesn't
already.
They don't. They don't.
Yeah. You don't. You can't.
And that's why this is all a bunch of nonsense, because this is going to carry on. All these trials are going to carry on through the electoral season. And then it's all going to get what's the word? It's all going to get overturned by a higher court. But at that point, it's going to be too late, and the damage is already done. And you know, so
it seems to be always the case.
It's like this Weinstein thing. This Weinstein thing. I mean,
and it'll be procedural. And that's the other thing too, is that it'll be procedural. And so then that way people can still run with, well, it only got overturned because of the procedure, so we don't still know whether or not it's like,
that's the whole goal for all this thing, is to keep him tied up in court the entire political season, so he can't go out and campaign. So, and
well, I mean, that's a mistake, because they're campaigning for him.
Yes, they absolutely are.
So all right, guys, real quick, we got one gifted Salty Nerd Podcast membership from Major Chai Chai. Thank you, Major Chai Chai. I really appreciate you. You and Jillian just are so generous with those gifted memberships. But guys, I want to stop talking about Harvey Weinstein. I want to start talking about another very notorious Hollywood personality, which is Zack Snyder and his Rebel Moon 2 movie, which seems to be underperforming despite being #1 on Netflix. So we have this Deadline article that says that Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, tops Netflix's film chart But at the same time, we have this big hit piece on Screen Rant talking about how Zack Snyder movies just keep getting worse and worse over time. He's like, he peaked very early on, and now all of his movies suck, which I thought was, kind of late to the party, but, got to give Screen Rant some credit there. I watched both Rebel Moons back to back in preparation for the release of Rebel Moon 2, because there's something so beautifully horrible about these movies. I just I'm watching it from a filmmaker perspective, and I'm like, this is a tour de force of how not to make a movie. And I just find it so fascinating how terribly bad it is. But the funny thing is that Zack Snyder's out there and he's saying that, I have a 6-movie trilogy planned. We've got a whole outline. We have
2 director's cuts.
Yeah. We got like a billion extended cuts that are completely different movies.
One with only the orchestra soundtrack, no leader, no vocals.
But what's interesting about this, and especially because we were talking about director's jail a little bit earlier on, which is basically that Zack Snyder is no longer a filmmaker. He's a direct to streaming filmmaker, which is basically the modern equivalent of direct to video.
Yeah.
And he tried to do some mental gymnastics with the math for the first Rebel Moon, where he's like, if you think about this, it made more money than Barbie. More people saw it than Barbie. And we actually did an episode breaking that math down, and it wasn't accurate at all. But you can't argue with the fact that Rebel Moon Part 2 was the #1 movie on Netflix, but it actually pulled in less views than Rebel Moon Part 1. And I think it goes to show that audiences just didn't like the first one. And other than hate watching it, I don't think a lot of people outside of the Zack Snyder faithful actually enjoyed this movie. But I do want to.
So it got the same amount of views and tickets sold as Oppenheimer, right?
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Zach math.
Yeah, Zach math. Hashtag Zach math, people in the chat. You want to do that. But real math, I want to throw this to Odin. So Odin, I know that you're more of a box office guy than a streamer guy, but Netflix, I'm wondering, are they happy with these numbers that they're seeing? Because even though it was #1, it got something like 23 million views when it premiered. And that was like less than the 26 million views that the first one got. Like, is Netflix looking at this as a win?
I guess we'll find out. One of the issues when it comes to anytime they're streaming movies or shows is that they don't actually give anyone outside of themselves the real data, the raw data. We have to take estimates. I think that you now have some third-party sites or third-party trackers that are able to get some general idea, some general consensus, but even then, again, you take it with a grain of salt. So we'll only be able to know whether they're happy with this depending on, does he get all the films that he is planning on doing. But even then, right, it's okay, but that also could be because they might be contractually obligated to do so. So even then, it's basically going to be almost impossible for us to know unless one of them says it out loud, or unless there's some kind of leak, or unless the data is actually released for it. What I do know is that when the day it came out, and I had a little bit of time to watch it before the Friday Night Tights episode where we covered it, I actually had to look for it. It did not show up on the front page for me. Now, I was on the app on my phone for it, and so again, take that for what it is. But I actually had to look for it. I actually had to search for it. And so I had to think about that, and I'm thinking, okay, so it's not getting this crazy promotion that I thought it would be getting. I thought it'd be like the first thing that I saw, but it ended up not being. So I don't know what that says about their algorithm in general. But yeah, ultimately, it doesn't matter what Zack Snyder says. All that I know is that anyone who has seen the film, for the vast majority of the people that have seen it, they have hated it. Not just that they didn't like it, they have hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not see anywhere close to the same number of people who are on the complete opposite side loving this film. And I think that ultimately I really hope that whatever deal that they have, Netflix just says, all right, let's just put the whole thing out of its misery. Let's get rid of, because I think Zack Snyder does not deserve work. He does not deserve to be making movies. He is a disgrace to filmmaking, and I just want him to go away, period.
I'm 100% with you there, Odin, except for the fact that he makes such bad movies that they are almost enjoyable to destroy in terms of like how we talk about them. But you know, Brian,
hey,
we recently got an interview with Zack Snyder where he basically said, if you don't like my movies, you're voting for focus groups. You're voting for the destruction of creativity in Hollywood, because everything is going to just be a focus group run movie. I'm so brilliant that you need to like my movies. Otherwise, you're just going to get garbage. What's your take on that? Is Zack Snyder sniffing his own farts?
Listen, I liked Zack Snyder's Justice League, but you know I didn't like? That it was in 4:3 aspect ratio in black and white. Like there's a reason why focus groups are a good idea. You know, you take a bunch of people who are fans of this particular content and you show it to them and then you get their opinion. I don't see a problem with that. Like, I don't want the studio making changes based on their pocketbook or their politics, but a focus group is a good thing. You get a lot of people into a room and say, hey, you like this or you dislike this, or what do you think can be better about it? You take those opinions and you add it to your thought process and your creative process next time, or when you're modifying the product. Nothing's wrong with that. You're trying to make a better product for the most, you know, for a wide audience. Not a problem. I do think that he's sniffing his own farts. I think when he compared his movie, his streaming direct-to-TV movie, to Barbie and Oppenheimer, I was just laughing my nuts off.
That was pretty funny.
It's so silly. And then, like, you watch Rebel Moon. Like, I thought Rebel Moon was going to be great. I was hoping it was. And Matt Kadish, you were right. It was not great.
I was hoping it was going to be good too. Yeah.
I was hoping though, man. I thought it was going to be like a badass Star Wars, like the Star Wars that I've lost. And even when I saw that, I remember watching the trailer and seeing that lightsaber and being like, hell yeah, it's got a lightsaber. And lightsaber,
not even
cool.
A lightsaber.
First mistake you made was thinking that Zack Snyder was something more than a perpetual 10-year-old who's never touched a tit.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a horrible filmmaker.
I get it, bro. So I went into
how horrible filmmaker is. He doesn't even understand what a director's cut is. He's shooting scenes for his director's cut right now for those fucking movies, guys. He doesn't understand that a director's cut is the first cut before it gets trimmed down. He thinks a director's cut is where you get to go back and shoot more shit for it.
All right, so he's making a special edition instead of
making a special edition.
All right, whatever.
What do you mean director's cut? You're the only one in charge of this. You are the director. We already saw the director's cut. You're making another version of what you already done. It's so weird.
Not only is he like a 10-year-old child, he's like a retarded 10-year-old child. Okay, that's what he is. He's
hard R.
He's horrendous.
Yeah, that's a hard R, bro.
Well, that word's okay now. Elon Musk.
Yeah,
it's okay.
We're all right.
Wait, we're allowed to use that word now?
Yeah, it's back.
Yeah.
It's back? Yes.
Said I can do blackface too. So
okay, so we can use the hard R word. All right.
All right, guys. Yeah. So I want to throw this to Smudboy. Smud, Zack Snyder basically in one of his promotional pieces for Rebel Moon Part 2, he was answering questions from fans, and they basically said, like, do you listen to any of the criticism online? And he said, no, I don't listen to any criticism online, because like if you did that, you'd spiral down into a pit of despair and never be able to escape. And then there's this article here in the Film News UK website where he's like, I don't understand why people don't like my movies. And in that promotional piece that he did, he basically said that the only people he gets feedback from are his friends. And so like these are people who are sniffing his farts and telling him what he wants to hear. And so like he never gets any actual criticism, like constructive criticism about his movies, and no one's ever there to tell him like, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. So what do you think, Smud, about filmmakers or artists in general who are afraid to listen to feedback and actually have the wherewithal to sift through that feedback and determine which is valid and which isn't?
It depends on who he covered himself with or who he used to defend himself, because it seems as if he's working with the same kind of guys who also write and direct with him. Like if he was just the director, I think he'd be fantastic. I think J.J. Abrams would be fantastic if he just directed and kept the writer's room away and it's almost like a George Lucas meets J.J. Abrams scenario, where George Lucas is surrounded by all these amazing guys in their departments, and then at the 10th hour of cutting everything up, it's like, oh my God, what did I do with the Phantom Menace? How do I put all these plot threads together? How do I connect these dots? So he's great when he did 300. He's great when he did what was the zombie film? I can't remember. Before
Dawn
that,
of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Like, those were good films. Those were fun, entertaining films. You read the comic book, it matches word for word, and the panels, like they match visually. Fantastic stuff. It's when he thinks to himself, I can do the work of the writer. It's like, you could, if you spend the years of reading and listening and getting criticism. I honestly don't believe he does not listen to social media and friends and family and critics. I think he does. And I think nowadays everyone does. Like we say, I don't go on Reddit. I don't go on this. Like, sure you do. You got time in your day. You got
100%. He's got like 14 alt accounts on Reddit.
He's got to have someone telling him something about what people say. And he knows his films are not that amazing. I remember seeing the trailer for the first Rebel Moon, and it was like a laser axe. I was like, that's weird. You know, it got my attention. I was like, okay, cool. But everything else about that, the dialogue deliveries, the whatever, the triumphant poses, I was like, oh no, this is going to be a bigger budget Xena Warrior Princess or whatever. So yes, he does listen to these people, and he's listening to the wrong people. He has to take a step back and says, what am I? Am I a writer? Go to writer school. Take a college course. Learn how to write. And say, oh,
masterclass, it's free.
You could do that. There's all kinds of writers that do that on Udemy. Yeah, you could totally get a course. He needs to actually do his craft outside of being a director. He can't just use his hammer, which is the director's chair, I guess, and see everything as a visual cue. The same way Lucas was like, give me like 10 robots, and we're going to come back next week, and we're going to get the one we like, and we're going to make that one. Like, that's, if you have like millions and millions of bucks to throw at experts that know what they're doing, that's one way of making a film. Not a way to write a story, though. So
yeah. You know, Vader, one of the interesting things about this hit piece on the Screen Rant website is they talk about how you know, early on in his career, Zack Snyder's movies were really good, and they specifically point out Dawn of the Dead, 300, and Watchmen. And then, like, once you get into Sucker Punch era and DC era and stuff like that, there are a lot of misfires here, going all the way down to Rebel Moon Part 2, which has a 15% Rotten Tomatoes score. But one of the things I always like to point out to people who are like, oh, like, he had good movies, these are all adaptations. So, like, you had Dawn of the Dead, which was a remake of the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, which was a Romero movie. James Gunn wrote that script. 300 was almost a shot-for-shot adaptation of the Frank Miller comic book. Watchmen was a almost shot-for-shot adaptation of the comic book run. And whenever he gets away from adapting better source material, he fumbles the ball. So I wanted to get your take on this, Vader. Why do you think he just doesn't stick to adaptations? Why do you think all of his best movies are from early on in his career?
Well, I think he is a typical Hollywood egomaniac who has his own things that he wants to make, and he just isn't capable of doing them. He clearly has a thing that he's good at, and that's adopting comic books and cool things and cool source material. He should lean into that, I think, because I think every one of us on this panel probably liked Dawn of the Dead. I think we all liked probably 300. I know I did. Watchmen, I think most people here and probably many people in the chat love that movie. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's one of these filmmakers who has ideas that he wants to make, and they cost a ton of money to do, and he just isn't good at getting them done. I don't dislike a lot of these movies as much as somebody else does. Like Army of the Dead, I guess it actually has a pretty decent score. I thought that movie was kind of cool. I liked how they took Vegas and
I like that movie.
Zombie tigers and zombie queens and stuff.
I especially like the intro.
A lot of cool stuff in that movie.
The intro with the gambler track, that was rad, dude.
You know, he kind of fell off the cliff here when he wanted to remake Zack Snyder's Star Wars. You know, it's nonsense. It's an awful movie where he just literally took just a bunch of movie tropes and made them weird and did this thing for Netflix. But yeah, I don't know, Matt. I think you know you're right. He needs to figure out what he's good at and just stick with it. And that's making comic book movies and readapting them to where they're like as close to the source material as he can possibly get them. And
yeah,
you know,
or he can stop. He could just stop too.
He's just a waste of oxygen. Let's be real. And the moment I thought that was the moment he's like, Rebel Moon is Seven Samurai meets Star Wars in space.
Yeah.
Star Wars is already in space, you moron.
Yeah, Star Wars in space. It's called Star Wars. It's in the title.
Yeah.
It's like saying it's like Star Wars meets Friday the 13th, but in the forest.
Yeah. Tom, I want to throw this to you because you know, we talked earlier on in the show about director's jail, and Snyder's run on DC comic book movies was pretty disastrous for Warner Brothers. All of his movies underperformed. They were all bloated, indulgent, nonsensical. And so he moved to Netflix because he got a development deal there at Netflix. And since then, he's been doing pretty much whatever he wants to varying degrees of success. But he's basically become a direct-to-streaming director anymore. So what do you think the future holds for someone like Zack Snyder, who's basically direct-to-video now?
Well, he'll play out whatever contract he's got with Netflix. And if they think that it's worth spending the kind of money he costs to make these movies that people only watch about half of, I guess he'll get some more movies on Netflix. Otherwise, it'll be done and over with. I mean, he's desperately trying to push for 6 of these Rebel Moon movies. And you guys said it yourself. They're already getting diminishing returns on these things. And the thing is with streaming compared to cable, they don't tend to do a lot of sequels for streaming movies because the whole point of getting it's to get new eyes, right? So that's why everybody's always like, well, why do they cancel a show when it's popular and it's only got 3 seasons? Well, it's because it's not bringing any new people in. That's why. It's only worth something to them on Netflix and all that kind of stuff if whatever it is they have on is bringing in new eyeballs besides the people that already have it. Because if you already have it and you're watching it, they're not really gaining anything from that. And I highly doubt Rebel Moon is bringing in any new customers, right? Like maybe they had a little bit of an influx of the Snyder bros when, you know, he did his Army movie, and sure, some of them watched the Rebel Moon first part, but I started hearing a lot of reports that'll have about most people checked out about halfway through, like they did with Justice League. So
Snyder bros are robots, dude. They're not real.
Yeah. And even they couldn't even. And what was funny is watching those guys argue over this movie, because like half of them are just like, yeah, it's just not that good. And then the other half are like, are you kidding? How can you say such a thing?
The bots are fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were like fighting with each other. It was hilarious.
We embraced Inception.
I think he's made to this point where he's got maybe, because I know he's got like one other movie he's got coming besides the Rebel Moon stuff. And unless they give him a few more Rebel Moon movies, then I think he's pretty much done. But we'll see.
I want to see more Army of the Dead, man. I like Army of Thieves too. I like both those movies.
Army of the Dead was a terrible movie. I don't know.
It was fun. It was fun. Army of Thieves was, I think, a better movie, but I think Army of Dead was a more fun movie.
Did he even direct that one? Because I think
he didn't. He produced it.
That's what I thought. Probably why it was
still a good movie. It was a good movie.
Brian, you don't know what good movies are.
I do.
Sorry.
If a movie makes me smile and it keeps me engaged,
go turn on your smoke machine, man.
It's a good movie. Sorry,
put something in the smoke machine.
But I wanted to, before we move on real quick, I wanted to touch on something Odin said, which was basically that Netflix did not promote this movie at all. Like you didn't see it on their homepage. You didn't see, they released a trailer and that was about it for the promotion. Whereas with the first Rebel Moon, they really pushed it hard. What do you guys think are the implications of that? Do you think like Netflix is just like, well, like we're moving on and it has enough recognition now that we don't need to promote it? Or were they specifically saying like, we know this is a dud, so we're not going to throw good money after bad?
because I think, just to make sure I, add to that, because that was just my own experience on my phone specifically.
No, I noticed it too on the TV app.
Because my guess is that, whenever they have newer films or projects where they really want to highlight it, because you know how everything is, algorithm run to certain extents. So depending on what you've been watching, you might get recommended things first, right? And so whenever they have something really big they want to promote, I feel like sometimes they push past those things, saying, all right, instead of showing you your most watched films or your most recently watched, or continue watching, or recommendations based off of that, we're going to push this specific thing first. And so it seemed like to me they didn't do that this time, right? And I feel like they probably did the last time. So yeah, I think that might just be their subtle way of saying, yeah, we really don't expect a lot of people to really watch this anyway, and we would rather not tick our fans, tick our user base off having to get through a bunch of Rebel Moon stuff to get to it. Would be my guess, but again, we don't know because they don't release any information, it seems.
Yeah, like even someone like me who watched Rebel Moon when it came out, I didn't see anything on the homepage of Netflix when you open the app recommending it. I had to search for it to watch the second one. It was very, very interesting how that happened. But I want to give a shout out to Gigaman Prime for $5 super chat. Remember that this is the man that misinterpreted a single scene from The Dark Knight Returns and made it the entire characterization of his Batman. Yes, indeed. I believe that was the one where Batman used a gun to rescue a child. Batman v Superman was basically Zack Snyder wanted to direct a Batman movie. He was contractually obligated to direct a Superman movie. So he did a backdoor Batman movie where he wanted to adapt Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. And so he did a half-assed job of it because that was the movie he really wanted to make. He wanted to make that one scene where Batman just murders a bunch of people. And he did it, and it was terrible. A lot of people say, oh, that's the best scene in the movie. It's like, well, it's a great scene if it wasn't Batman doing it. It was a terrible interpretation of the character. And I also don't like his version of Superman either. But maybe he'll get to remake Sucker Punch. That'll be cool. Well, he's trying
with Sydney Sweeney.
He's begging his fans, right?
Dude, Sucker Punch with Sydney Sweeney. I'll watch that all day long.
Well, no, he's trying to do a Snyder cut of Sucker Punch, because he says, I've got all the stuff shot already. I just need the money to I feel like he has this. I feel like he has this vault of all this stuff that he wants to do, but he can't. I got all this stuff for all these movies.
He's a fucking con man.
I suck so much that nobody was going to ever give me the money to do the stuff I want to do. So yeah. Tom, do you remember when it came out that 15 to 20% of the Twitter accounts that were advocating for the Snyder cut were all bots that were being run by his publicity agency to create an AstroTurf movement to force Warner Brothers to let him release his version of Justice League.
I remember that, and I also remember the day I was told about it, because they were pissed at Warner Brothers. They literally felt like they got conned into that Justice League thing. You guys got to remember, they spent $90 million more on that movie. That's the only movie in history to lose money twice.
Probably also on a director's cut.
It's true.
To lose money on a director's cut too.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
At least with Morbius, all they did was re-release the movie. They didn't add anything to it. They didn't do anything to it. You know what I mean? At least you could say,
I want a Morbius director's cut.
Yeah, no. The Justice League is the first time they spent more money on a movie after it already lost money to re-release it, only to technically lose money again because it didn't make anything. It's only sold about $20 million worth of DVDs and Blu-rays.
Still a good movie.
No, it's not.
It is.
No,
dude,
it's not. It's the same damn thing as the other one, just longer.
No, it's not the same thing. It's much different. Really the other one was edited to death, bro. There was a lot of context missing.
Not really.
How about
I know you hate Zack Snyder, but you gotta admit that's a good movie.
If your first movie's at negative 100 because it's so bad, just because he got it to 0 doesn't mean it's good.
The first movie wasn't him though. The first movie was the JJ cut.
Yeah, no. The first thing was the what's his name cut. The
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon cut. But no,
Actually,
what I'm saying is that
studio cut,
it is
yeah.
it is a significant improvement on the first one. We could argue, right? -100 to 0. That's still 0. It's still bad.
I actually disagree. I think Whedon's cut's better because Superman actually acts like Superman.
Oh my god!
Guys,
All we get in the Snyder cut is Superman comes in, kicks somebody, and that's it.
guys, both movies are bad.
I just need 3 hours. Give me 5 hours. That can make a better
And
film.
the other thing is the Whedon cut is shorter.
That's a great point.
Hands down, that makes it better right away.
Thank you, sir. That's the answer I was looking for.
My only problem with Snyder Cut is the stupid ratio. It's so dumb being in 4:3 ratio. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, and if you watch the videos, they're out there.
And the black and white, like stupid. That's
outside of those few Batman scenes in the beginning, the only true difference between the movies in the Whedon cut, you get a shot of an establishing shot of a building, and then you cut to the scene inside the building. In the Snyder cut, you get establishing shot of the building, closer shot of the building, shot of a hallway leading up to a room, shot of a door leading up to another hallway leading up to another room. And I'm not even kidding. Go look. Man. There's videos out there showing this. Like that's literally what most scenes are in the Snyder cut. Is it's just more establishing, 5 minutes of crap until they get to the actual scene, and then finally you get to the scene, and then finally the Joss Whedon cut starts on the left.
All right,
so
talk about the character development though. So much more character development. Look at the father, Cyborg's father. You got so much more out of that. In fact, that was a better character for it. There was a lot. There's a lot better movie.
More better.
That was that character was cool when he sacrifices himself for him. Now there's context. It made sense.
Look,
I don't know. Look,
you
we can argue about
it,
but
okay, I have a pile of crap. And now I have a bigger pile of crap. It's bigger, so it's automatically better. It's still a pile of crap, and it's more of it.
Whatever you guys say. Whatever you say.
Well,
Brian,
you guys are acting like
being
it's
wrong, Brian.
The Lord of the Rings cut. Now that's a big difference, right? Like,
Brian, you like what you like, brother. It's okay.
Yeah,
I'm with
sorry.
you.
It's a good movie.
I don't agree, but I'm with you.
You can like bad movies. I'm not taking that away.
All right.
It's okay.
Tom likes a lot of bad movies.
Dude, don't even get me going on your critics account, okay, Odin? Don't even get me going.
All right, guys. So we're going to be moving on here to a topic that is close to my heart, which is that Sony just got the rights to Clue. And yeah, so basically for a long time, Ryan Reynolds was trying to reboot Clue as a live action where he was going to play Wadsworth the butler and stuff like that. But I want to open this up to the panel. Like, we don't have to go person by person, but I wanted to see, like, what do you guys think this means for the cult classic version of Clue? Do you think we're going to see a resurgence in this? Is anyone else besides me excited about it?
I think the butler did it.
I would. The only thing that excites me, the only thing that would excite me, you referenced the old film, would be, but I feel like they just recently, Tom, you would know this. Did they recently release a 4K version of that?
Yes.
Or okay.
Fuck Shout Factory did it.
That would be the only thing, right? Would be, oh, maybe they have a super collector's edition, but they've already kind of done that. Because I don't really want a newer version. I like that film. I like the way it is. I don't need a new one. Again, Ryan Reynolds, I think, would be one of the few that could maybe do it justice. But even then, it's like, I don't want to even take the risk at this point with Hollywood.
Risk is a totally different game.
Yeah, but
that's fine. That's fine.
One of the interesting things about this is that the Clue adaptation could be like a series now. It could be like
that would be better. A mini series would be much better. You can flesh out more of the characters for sure.
I just would rather have a movie based on Chutes and Ladders. You know,
Candyland.
Hungry Hippo.
Sure.
Mousetrap. You could do a horror film with Mousetrap.
The producer did it in the studio with the mic boom. Okay.
Oh my God, Mousetrap horror film would be awesome.
A24 Mousetrap.
Legit, that would be awesome. That's not even a joke.
Can you get out of the trap?
Tim Curry,
I don't know, man. I'm looking forward. I think I'm looking forward to a Clue remake. If it's going to be a series and Ryan Reynolds is attached, that would be better.
If they get, well, I don't know if he's going to be attached, but if they get the right comedians involved, you could do it. As long as it's not a complete reboot of the original, you got to do your own thing.
Yeah, do your own thing.
If you're doing a series like what's the Steve Martin one with Martin Short?
Murders in the Building, yeah. Murders Only in the Building or whatever.
That would work fantastically. I don't know if they can do it with a mansion, how long that would last because people keep dying. But no, I love Cluedo, the board game. It's my second favorite film. If they can do anything with that, if they can try to emulate Tim Curry again, or was it Madeline Kahn, like any of those great actors that that pulled that performance and do their own spin.
Christopher Lloyd and
go for it. I'd love to see them try. Why not?
Why is everybody excited about this and people get all butthurt over a remake of The Running Man? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you because I want to see it a good.
Because Clue didn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. That's why.
Oh my god!
But also,
if he was in it going, I know it was Colonel Mustard and he did it in the study with a candlestick. And I'm going to get you. Now it'd be a totally different
Tom,
movie.
what I'm hearing is you want a Running Man Clue mashup movie. Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
I'll be back. Only in reruns.
So I want to just point out that Ryan Reynolds is no longer attached. Like he had his chance. And,
never mind.
And, you know,
Take
is something.
Never mind.
This is something different that Sony now has the rights to it, and Hasbro's been trying to kind of get a lot of their other properties going other than Transformers and stuff like that. But with the success of Barbie, they're like, hey, we got a lot of like, you know, fun games and toys that can be turned into movies. And there's already so much love for like the original Clue movie. Like if they do make a movie version, movie remake version of it, I really want to see them have like multiple different endings in different theaters around the country. That would be really cool.
Because then you'd be debating it
for the original.
Yeah, I saw the
That'd be
original
rad.
with the 3 endings, so I never knew there was multiple.
Yeah, depending on which show. When they showed it in theaters, they showed it with a different ending depending on which theater you were in.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then on home video, they showed all 3 endings.
All 3 endings on the home video.
Okay, now here's what really happened. I love that. I just every time I watch it, it just makes me happy. It just makes me I
didn't
smile.
know that. I saw
but
it after the fact.
I was thinking
That'd be cool.
the other thing that maybe it would work, it could potentially work, would be if they did something similar to only the first one, like the reboot. I guess it's technically a continuation of the story because it references the other ones, but Jumanji. Right, I thought the first one was actually okay. I was like, okay, it's clearly paying homage to the original, but then also it's becoming its own thing too. So, you know, not to do the exact same thing. I don't think Dwayne The Rock Johnson, for instance, should be in it. But if they did something like that, where it's like, you know, kind of like a modern retelling in a good way. But again, I don't trust modern Hollywood to do that at all.
Yeah.
Come on, if Arnold's in it, he can go Colonel Mustard spread.
So Deadpool
when he's pointing a gun at him
is going to be Jumanji.
I'm with Tom. We should have a Clue remake starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife, Maria. I mean,
it was the maid. I swear to God, it was the maid.
Call it Steven Seagal in there.
Call it the Clue Spendables.
Sly's like, it's always you and the maid. What is that with you and the maid?
Steven Seagal's like, communism was just a red herring.
Shut up, Steve.
All right, guys, we got some super chats.
Dolph Lundgren has to be in it to his Mrs. White.
Oh yeah, $100 million.
Rachel Zegler is the Singing Telegram.
Oh, nice.
Oh Lord!
All right, guys, we got a super chat from You Fuck That Beesh for $4.99. I started a new channel called Fanfic Story. 2 episodes on my channel. It's mainly Stargate fanfic using AI voices with some music.
Nice.
Hey, Brian, maybe you should go check that out.
Yeah. I told him to send me the link in my Discord because he tried to link it here and I couldn't get it. You Fook, drop it in my Discord. I want to see it. I'll talk about it on the next show.
You gotta love Stargate fanfic because that's all that Amazon's going to
That's probably all we're going to get for a couple of years minimum.
Is there any shipping in it?
No shipping.
No shipping. Okay.
Inside spaceship shipping, sure.
Yeah.
Wendy Hunter for $1.99. Clue is a great classic movies.
Shout out to Wendy. She's a trooper on all her channels. Man.
Didn't they just do a small theatrical run of it like last year or something like that too? Because I think it was the anniversary. I want to say I know somebody I thought said they did.
Yeah.
It might have been like a retro theater.
Fathoms or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Fathoms event. Speaking of Fathoms event, thank you for doing that, Tom. I really appreciate the transition here. Lord of the Rings special edition 4K is returning to cinemas, guys.
Well, these are actual director's cuts, guys. So Zach, pay attention.
Yeah. So basically, the 4K extended editions of all 3 Lord of the Rings films, sponsored by Fathom, is going to be returning to the theaters, and these are the 4K remasters, which get rid of some of the foibles for the Blu-ray transfers and stuff like that. So I just wanted to open it up to the group. Tom, if you know something about this, feel free to educate us.
Well, It's just that they are decent enough looking 4Ks, but he went a little too crazy with the DNR, and there's some shots that are horrible. And he changed some color timing and some other things on a few shots. But that being said, no, I think it's cool that they're actually bringing the director's cuts to theaters, which is a rarity.
The 6-hour director cuts, yeah.
Yeah.
These are director's cuts that mattered. Yeah. Is anyone excited to actually go see these in the theater? Like, Vader, are you going to take a pee bottle with you and binge these things?
Listen, I'll be honest with you guys. These movies are all like 4.5 hours long each, and they're being released one day after each other consecutively. I don't have 14 hours to spend at the theater in one weekend. I wish I did too. I would have to take PTO time from work to go watch these movies, and I can't do it right now. But I think it's awesome that they're being released. I hope people who haven't seen these, or just people that love these movies, go out there, and I hope they make $5 million each day, because it would be really, really super cool for these movies to do well. I want to go see them. I really do. And I might take some time to go see at least the first one, because I want to see it in the theater. It'd be really cool. Yeah. But there's no way in hell I'm seeing all three of these movies in one weekend. Because
well, it's funny, Vader, is our friend Stuttering Craig over at Side Scrollers. Like he was going to rent out a theater to watch these movies. Now he doesn't have to. He can actually go to the theater and watch all of these back to back.
I really wish they were doing this like a month apart from each other. And
that's why I'm actually I'm mad that they're doing this.
Yeah,
only because I know I can't watch them because I don't have the time to, and I'm mad that I'm not going to be able to. So
I have to like try to squeeze in a movie almost every week right now because it's summer season, and I'm having a hard time just finding time to go to the theater for one movie during the week, much less 3-4-hour movies when these come out. It's going to be crazy.
Now, when is it coming out? Because actually, if it's coming out in the summer, maybe.
I believe it's in June. Yeah, it's Fellowship of the Ring is June 8th.
Oh,
and then June 9th is the Two Towers, and the 10th is the
during the day. I actually have a chance.
Yeah, you get your summers off, don't you?
I do.
All right, guys, real quick, we got a members chat for 13 months from Danny the Dork Knight. Did Brian get his free 3D printer? Acknowledge me.
Not yet, Brian, I was told I would be.
By who?
Temu. I signed up for a what do you call it? An influencer account. I guess they gave it to me because my other channel, and I got like 15 people to sign up, and now I'm getting a $400 3D printer, according to them. And when it shows up, I'll be surprised. Let's see. Let's hope it happens.
Getting a $400 3D printer from China.
Kadish, acknowledgement for him costs $50. Okay, that's it. It's $50 for the banner. That's just the way it is.
You hear that, Danny? $50 for the acknowledgement.
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to print out the Danny the Dork Knight Batman logo as a 3D item.
You guys are talking about him way too much.
Very good. Stop. All right, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel of nerds for showing up sort of on time and participating with us. Odin from OMB Reviews. Any final thoughts and what's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm sorry I was a little late today. Get off my back about it. Anyway, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, also over on Twitter as well. And as far as final thoughts, I'm sorry. Zack Snyder's films suck. None of them have aged well. Even the ones I liked when I first saw them just don't age well, because the slow motion now, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I may have enjoyed it then, but now that I've seen so much slow motion since then, it makes 300 a lot harder to get through. But anyway, thank you all again for having me on, as always.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out Odin's articles over on geeksandgamers.com. He's doing a great job doing his box office breakdowns over there. So if you're interested in that stuff, go check it out. Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Well, Matt and I will be getting in the ring in a few weeks. And so buy your tickets now for Madison Square Gardens. Now,
the great Furiosa battle.
I want you to come to Vegas so we can go watch Furiosa together, Tom.
No, thank you. If I come to Vegas, it's for tons of other things other than that.
Like
I would feel really bad if I go to Vegas to see a movie.
No, right? Just do it. That's the kind of be spontaneous.
No,
let's go. Come on.
But yes, check me out on Midnight's Edge After Dark, Mead Radio, and all those fun places. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. And our special guest from the Great White North, Smudboy, thank you for joining us today. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Interesting discussion. I'm glad you guys have a Fifth Amendment. So that whole legal thing went half over my head, but I'm glad you guys had a positive take on stuff. That's always nice to hear that the legal, because all these stuff will outlive us, but good legal issues are here to affect us currently and going forward. For me, check out Smudboy on YouTube. I do the Smudcast, where I do a podcast not unlike this, but a little more disorganized and a lot more swearing. And we cover other YouTubers. So you could be one of you guys. We never have, unfortunately. And I've always linked to Kadish on every one of my videos. So that's how they know you. And I've been covering the Fallout series right now in my videos and doing a plot analysis. I'm on episode 3. So
yeah. You got good stuff over there, and basically links to everyone's channels are in the description. We like to promote our panelists here on the Salty Nerd Podcast. So if you want to head over to Smudboy's channel, just open the description link and click on it, and you'll go right over there. Brian, the original Smoke Show, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
No final thoughts. You can catch me. My Ghostbusters documentary is coming out next week. Next Thursday, the definitive history of Ghostbusters, and it's like 2 hours long. So I hope you guys come watch it.
2 hours?
2 hours.
It's so long. It's almost 2 hours long.
It's almost as long as his dick.
Yes, it's my director's cut.
that didn't hit well. That did not hit well.
So you're going to add more later?
No, I'm skipping the process. I'm just giving you a director's cut right away.
Brian, is it 4x4 in black and white?
It's 4:3 aspect ratio. It's in 3D. You have to have 3D glasses to watch it, but the actual content's not 3D.
Right on. And real quick before we get to Matt Vader, we got You Fucked That Beesh for $199.
It's Fook, man.
Sorry, Brian. You Fook That Beesh for $199. Sorry, Brian. Been busy.
No problem, bro. I can't wait to see it.
No problem. Okay, Matt Vader 74. What do we got going on the Salty Nerd Podcast this week?
Oh, we're watching some movies and we're talking about them. That's what we got going on. Let me see. I think we're watching. I might be wrong, but I believe we're watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I believe we're watching Boy Kills World at the theater this week. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And then I think we're doing a Patreon or a YouTube membership review for the 1981 classic Dragon Slayer. So I believe that's what we got going on. So, and I'm going to be playing a lot of Helldivers. So that's it.
And when does next Helldivers podcast come out?
I'm not sure. We do them as we can. So I don't have a schedule yet. Probably late at night and maybe tonight. I don't know. We'll see.
It'll be this coming Tuesday evening.
Oh, you're talking about the podcast? I thought you were talking about the stream. Yeah, Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening. Salt Divers. We're going to be going through game news and stuff. And if that's going to be over on the Salty Nerd Gaming channel, here's a link for it right here. If you didn't see it earlier, we're almost at 200 subs on there. Please go over there and smash that button for us, guys. Appreciate you. So,
I want to give a big shout out to our super chatters for this episode: Mexican Iron Man, Gigaman Prime, and You Fook Dat Beesh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support, and also big shout out to Scotty Dub for being our top contributor on the pod on the show, I should say, and also want to give a special shout out to Jillian and Major Chai Chai. Thank you so much for gifting those memberships. And Danny the Dork Knight, we acknowledge you just because it upsets Vader.
$50. I'm charging him $50 every time you say that.
$50. $50. Yes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here today. Be sure to tune in next week as we talk about more nonsense. Same salty time, same salty channel. And until next time, stay salty, my friends.
Hey, folks, thanks so much for watching this live stream. If you want to watch our previous live stream, make sure to click right here. Or if you would like to check out one of our favorite highlights, click right here.